Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, the show in which we break down players that are typically linked to Arsenal in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight. Today's show is slightly different because we're going to be talking about a player that we already have and have known to have for quite a long time, yet have still kind of waiting to see him play in an Arsenal shirt at the senior level, and that is William Saliba, who joined Nice on loan at the beginning of the January transfer window. He's had a few games at Nice now. He's played 3 times for them, and we're going to look at those 3 matches and see how he's adjusting to try and get a small insight into how he's getting on in France. So, as I say, a slightly different show to what we're used to, and it's going to go down differently as well. There's no expert insight specifically because this whole kind of video is based upon an article that I wrote on 101, which is in the description, where I break down all of those 3 performances and kind of how we got to the stage of where he left us on loan in the piece. So if you want to read that, please do feel free, and it is in the description. It was posted on Twitter a few days ago, so you may have already read it. But we're going to break apart that in a lot more detail. We're going to look at some of the statistics on Y-Scout. We're going to go through the graphics as well. And I'm going to look, and then at the end of the video, there'll be an opportunity for you guys that are watching live to ask some questions about Saliba and have a little bit of a chat and discussion for a few minutes or so about the youngster. So let's crack straight on with the video and talk about where he's been playing for Nice. I mean, as you can see from the heat map, his main kind of position in the 3 games that he's played so far have been in that centre back, in the centre of the 3, in a back 3. He has mainly played there. He has skewed out towards either side and has deputised on the left towards the end of one of the matches. In fact, it was the match against Bordeaux in the last game, where he spent some time kind of in more of a left-sided role than more central. But that's where he's been playing, which is, I don't think would be very, very beneficial for Arsenal, because obviously we're moving away from the back 3 situation into a back 4. And we would hope that maybe he would transition into a back 4. So that's a small worry, is that he will spend 6 months on loan at a team that aren't playing in the same back 4 system that we typically do. What I will say is it's going to give him plenty of opportunities to show that he can defend. Nice, from watching them to put together the article, are atrocious at the back. Really bad. I'm going to show you some of the instances where they concede, and we're going to break down how and where Saliba was during those goals. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of highlight what Saliba does kind of best and what stands him out from many other defenders. And that is the fact that he's a ball-playing defender. He's dynamic. He likes to have the ball at his feet. And he did that for the Arsenal's under-23s and the under-21s as well in the EFL Trophy. But here, under pressure, stepping out from defence as if it's no one's business, laying it back to the keeper very calmly despite being put under intense pressure. Arteta will like the fact that he can play out from the back, and I think that's something that will definitely add to his Arsenal, no pun intended. And we look at another example here in the same game against Bordeaux. There's a loose ball scenario here. He's miles away from the ball moving here from the opposition player. He actually manages to beat the player to the ball, brings it away. Instead of just lumping it out of play, he collects it, plays it forwards, gets the ball moving again. And he does this with his long-range passing as well. He tried doing this for the Arsenal under-23s to little success, and there was kind of a lot of emphasis on him to kind of be a protagonist as a centre-back, because he's a £27 million player playing amongst youngsters. And so there was always kind of this emphasis on him to make it happen and make the ball do the work, and him to show up the other players and be kind of a bit of a senior force, even though he's still only 19 years of age. And he has translated that to Liga and with Nice, and you can see him playing the ball out wide to Latomba in this position here. And he does it from the other side against Metz, from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, from the centre of the pitch, playing forward to Atal, who I know that a lot of people kind of rate. But in the 2 games that I've watched Atal play, watching Saliba, I wasn't really that impressed with the Algerian, I'll be honest. In this scenario, he takes the ball first time and tries to play a ball into the box to little success. But it's that ball that does come over the top from Saliba that we're focusing on, that long ball, the David Luiz-esque distribution that he does possess in his game. Now, what I thought would be the most beneficial thing to do is to look at the goals that Nice have conceded. In the 3 games that Saliba has played, they've conceded 6 goals. They've not won any of those games. They've lost 2 and drawn 1. In his first match against Brest, one of the most interesting parts of the game was, I don't know if you saw this, it probably went pretty viral amongst Arsenal Twitter. Not only a little spin from Saliba at the back, but also the Brest keeper decided to hit his own bar and post in the game, which was quite hilarious. But in the 2 goals, the first goal does, for me, fall slightly at Saliba's feet in terms of him being slightly at blame. Favre, who I've probably pronounced wrong, is on the ball on the right-hand side. You can see him in the centre of your screen there. You've got the Nice back 3. Saliba is marking Mooney at this stage. Again, probably pronounced wrong. And Saliba comes across when his left-sided centre-back is in a position to cover Favre, but he moves away from Mooney. He loses his man in this mark. Not necessarily loses his man. He moves away from his man. His man doesn't lose him at all. Mooney maintains his position. And as Favre takes the shot, because Saliba is ultimately anticipating that Favre is going to get the shot in, and he wants to do everything he can to try and stop that. But he moves away from Mooney, leaving him open. And then when the shot is taken, the Nice keeper does not do well at all and parries it straight into Mooney's path. And you can see by this time, when he does parry the shot away, Saliba is miles from his man, and he just has to simply tuck it away to make it 1-0 in this scenario. So here, in his first game for Nice, really kind of enthusiastic, wants to try and get into play, but I think he just kind of loses concentration and loses his what he needs to be focused on, which is sticking with his man, letting his teammate deal with the shot, even though the shot is still got away. The fact that he lost his man and left it open for Mooney to get in and take that. It might be harsh to solely blame him. I think to block the shot in the first place stops the whole scenario, and had Saliba been able to stop the shot, the goal never would have happened. But he should kind of stick with the player that he's got in the middle there instead of doubling up on the player that's taken the shot and losing him. The second goal, I've seen some people try to suggest that Saliba is at fault for this, and I simply can't blame Saliba in any way for what happens for the second goal. The Nice left wing back, Latomba, decides to play a ball back to his own keeper in this scenario. And if you're going to do this, I'm not sure if he's a left wing back, so I assume I'm being lazy and assuming that he's left-footed, but he's hitting it with his right foot anyway. And he hits it back to the keeper at the most hospital speed that Honorat, the Brest forward, can just sprint in, nick the ball off the keeper before it ever gets anywhere near reaching him, take it round him, and score. Now, Saliba, of course, you can see in the first image, is in the sort of middle left-hand side of your screen there, and Honorat's able to ghost in behind him, get ahead of him, and score. Again, it stuns me that some can think that he's at fault for this goal. It happened so fast, and he's obviously not anticipating his own wing-back to play the ball back so lightly to his own keeper. Maybe he could turn and be a bit more aware if you're being exceptionally harsh. But for me, I can't put the blame at Saliba's feet for this goal whatsoever. In the game against Metz, they were 1-0 up at this time, Nice. The game ends in 1-1 because of this goal. The corner's taken, it's headed out and cleared. The ball falls to a Metz player on the edge of the box who looks to swing the ball in. Now, you can see from Saliba and from the arrows that I've shown, he leads the charge out from the back, like you should do. If the ball's being played into the box like this, everyone steps up, tries to play the Metz players offside. 4 of those Nice players managed to do that, with Saliba leading that call out from the back. But Latomba and Camara, both of them in this situation here, just don't manage to get out. They don't read the situation. They don't push up, and they play every single person in this move onside. And ultimately, the ball falls to Maiga in the box, who gets to have a shot. The ball falls to him. He takes the shot after everyone's now come back. Saliba, you could argue, could chase Boye into the box, but again, his eyes are focused on the shot. He can't really get anywhere near it. It happens so quickly, and the keeper again parries the shot away straight into the path of Boye, who just can simply slot home. I find it very difficult, again, to put any kind of blame at Saliba's feet for this goal. And this isn't bias. I thought he was at fault for the first goal against Brest. But in this situation, he steps up with his other 3 defenders. His other defenders don't step up, playing everyone onside. The move happens very quickly. His keeper, again, parries it, not away from danger, but straight into the path of Boye, who's there to score. And yeah, it's Again, poor defending from Nice and from the left-hand side of the Nice defence specifically to play everyone onside. But again, it happened so quickly. The keeper is at fault once again, parrying the ball straight back into the path of one of these players. Now, against Bordeaux, Nice lost at home 3-0 to Bordeaux in one of the worst defensive displays I've seen from a team in terms of all the goals. Saliba, though, does everything he can. In all three of these goals, I don't look at Saliba as the main guy at all at fault for these. The ball is played over the top to Adley, who, of course, I think you may remember, was linked with Arsenal previously. Adley runs at Saliba. Saliba stands his ground. Now, the only criticism I have of Saliba, maybe in this scenario, is that he could close the space between him and Adley down. He doesn't. He jockeys. He tries to read where Adley's going to go, and he gets close to him. But he puts the faith in his teammates at the back to mark up the players in the box. And as you can see here, Saliba goes goal side, trying to stop Adley from having a near post shot at goal. Opens up the right-hand side to a possible pass across the pitch where he would hope that his teammates have marked up. They haven't marked up, as you can see from the arrows there, and then they are desperately trying to get back to stop Hwang from easily putting the ball into the back of the net. It was horrific defending from Nice. The same thing kind of happens at the next goal, which is from a corner. Saliba is near the penalty spot here, marking his man. He is nowhere near the guy that scores because it is not his man, and Nsoki is marking base in the middle of the box. Base runs in, gets ahead of Nsoki and heads it in for 2-0. Saliba, as you can see there, stays goal side of his man throughout the entire move and is just not something that you can put on Saliba again for this goal. The third goal, quite similar in terms of it comes from the right-hand side. Down the right-hand side for Bordeaux. Nsoki, nonchalant, running back. Doesn't try to stop the cross whatsoever. Saliba is caught in a situation where he sees Nsoki is not going to get there. Pulls himself forwards, closes the right winger down. And again, there's three Nice defenders, or two Nice defenders and one midfielder behind him. And there's only two Bordeaux players. And none of those three players pick up either of the two in the box. Horrific marking from the Nice players there. Saliba's trying to anticipate to stop the cross. The ball is easily played back to Basic, who has a very easy and calm shot with the amount of space that he's been given in the box to hit the ball into the back of the net. It's horrific defending from Nice. And Saliba is going to be a very busy man this season for sure. And someone that is going to have to deal with a lot of really kind of poor defensive decision-making from some of his teammates. He can only do ultimately what he's doing. In fact, as we know, when we like to talk on the show about Saliba and about French players in general, we talked a lot to Jeremy Smith, who of course writes for Get French Football News and The Guardian, and is a podcast host and co-host on French Football Weekly. And I sent him the article, which was breaking down all of these situations here. And I said, have I got this spot on? I want to double check as someone who I'm not a week in, week out watcher of Liga, and I was just purely looking at the games to analyse Saliba's performances, and I wanted to get his thoughts. So I said, was my critics of Saliba and Nice spot on? And he said, you're bang on, mate. Lazy people out of there who want to prove Arteta respectively right will look at Nice's awful results and blame him. But at 19, barely any football behind him, and at a new club, he's basically got to put it, guys, everywhere and be the leader of that defence at just 19, because the Nice defence is so poor. It's so poor that that Saliba's having to be a leader at 19 within that defence. Now, this for me could either make or break him as a guy on loan in these 6 months. He's going to be under a lot of pressure because Nice are going to get attacked a lot and going to make a lot of mistakes, and are going to continue to concede goals with how they are defending currently. And what needs to happen is that Saliba needs to take this experience as the perfect opportunity to be tested. Ultimately, the club situation is not his responsibility in the long term, and it's just for these 6 months. So he shouldn't be too downhearted if Nice end up near the bottom of the table, because he's going to be going back to Arsenal. But it could be a situation where it's going to be mentally tough playing in this Nice defence, I think, to be a leader at just 19 years of age and to cope with this situation. Well, again, we're going to revisit this. This is just 3 games. I wanted to look at how we've been getting on just in the 3 games that he played. And I think he's done very well, actually, considering the situation that he's in. And at the end of the season, we're going to revisit this and we're going to go back and we're going to analyze some more performances, get Jeremy on as well, I think, and talk to him about how he feels Saliba has done these last 6 months. That kind of concludes the analysis of his play. So we're going to quickly have a look at some of the statistics, which also back up some of the thoughts and the ideas about him being quite good for Nice. If we look at the actual interceptions so far this season, he's made 25 interceptions in just 3 games, which is an incredibly high amount of interceptions in the game, 8, 9, and 8 in those 3 matches. And he averages usually about 7.89 across his career. So he's above average at the moment during the games that he's making. Defensive duels per game, he won 100% of his defensive duels against Metz in the 4 that he tried to make. He won 40% of the 5 he did against Bordeaux. He won 75% of the aerial duels against Metz and 60% against Bordeaux. Didn't have to do any aerial duels at all against Brest in his opening game, and didn't win the defensive duel that he got involved in that game whatsoever. The recoveries are quite impressive. So far, he's got 33 recoveries, averaging 11 across each of his games, which is above average for what he's putting across against Nice, which is very good. Losses, he is trying to make stuff happen with his passing, and that does lead to some balls going astray. He's made 20 losses so far, but a ratio of 20 losses to 33 recoveries is still quite good. He's above average for his clearances. If we have a look into his passing side of things, 91% passing across all of his games, which is just ever so slightly below his average, but 91% pass accuracy, still very, very good. In the game against Bordeaux, he played 15 passes into the final third, which is an incredible amount. All into the wide areas, trying to get his attacking side down into the wide, and that will be something that Arteta will look at. When we did the breakdown of Saliba playing against Gillingham in the EFL Trophy, some of the things that he made wrong was that his passes just weren't accurate whatsoever. This is growth. This is improvement. This is certainly something that will benefit him. And the pass map of those 80% successful passes definitely shows that. So that's impressive. The passes here against Brest in his opening game were much shorter. He's gradually going in confidence, it seems, with the passes that he can make during the games. He's trusted with over average the amount of received passes, and forward to backward passes, as you would expect, have been a lot more in favour of moving the ball up the pitch as much as possible. We're going to look at the attacking stats. They're not too relevant because, of course, he is a centre-back. But offensive duels, 33% one of those games, 67% of the game against Bordeaux. It's a very small sample size at the moment, but he is trying to get involved with more defensive duels. Dribbling, he is a guy that likes to play out from the back. He hasn't really been able to do that in the first 2 games, but against Bordeaux, he played out from the back in 2 scenarios up the pitch, and that was something that we looked at in the graphics. 5 progressive runs as well with the ball out from the back against Bordeaux. Does like to progress the ball forwards. So I think he's doing quite well for the moment. And I think that ultimately, as I've said already, it's going to be a really kind of tough period for him at Nice, in a team that is going to struggle for the rest of the kind of the 6 months that he's in, which I think is good in a way, because it means he's going to be busy. It's not like he was playing at a really team high up in the league and he wouldn't have much to do. It's going to test him, and that's going to be good for him. Now, last 5 minutes or so of the show is your opportunity in the chat box to ask specific questions. If we could keep the questions, of course, relevant to the topic, and then we can have a look at them. So Matt G says, do you think Nice will try to keep Saliba in the summer? If he does well, it wouldn't be surprising to see them try and keep Saliba, but that doesn't mean anything in regards to whether they're able to. He'll have a 3-year deal left at the end of this current season, because he signed a 5-year, went back on loan, and then he's had this year as well. So 3 years remaining on that deal. I don't personally think that there should be any issues in keeping him at the club. Yes, he's been frustrated at his time at Arsenal, as any player would be, not getting the minutes that he wasn't given. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. Sam says, this does not sound like an environment suitable to develop our young player. And it is going to be tough. But what you should look at is it's kind of a make or break. It's going to build resilience. It's going to build character. It's going to build, hopefully, consistency and leadership qualities as well, playing in a defence that ultimately he needs to be better in. Thapello says, Tom, can you do a Fofana-Saliba comparison while they were both at Saint-Etienne? I don't think that would really be beneficial, because I don't like the Fofana-Saliba comparisons anyway this season. I don't think they've been relevant at all. because they're two different players at two different clubs in two different situations. So no, I don't plan on doing a comparison of the two, because I don't think it would be beneficial, because it's different, and it's 2 years ago, 2 years ago now that they're playing together. So I'm not too interested in looking at that. Ray says, do we know if it was his choice to go there? I don't know, actually. I feel like if it was his choice, he would have gone back to Saint Etienne. The club's relationship with them is not in the best state right now. So I would be reluctant to say that it was his choice to go to Nice. I think it would have been his choice to go back to France, but he did really well at Saint Etienne in France, and maybe it can be that kind of trampoline to push him forwards, reaching there. Lord says Virgil van Dijk was in a struggling Southampton team before he went to Liverpool, so maybe this could toughen him up. Then again, look at Fofana at Leicester. There was a question about Guendouzi. Temi says, how about a review of Guendouzi? Possibly in time, but his situation's very different to Saliba's. I don't know how much of a future he has at Arsenal, no matter how he gets on there. But it might be worth, when there's time during the February, March time, when we've got some more opportunities and there's gaps in the fixture list, that we can have a look for sure. He looks like a future captain, says Abodi. If he continues with the leadership skills that he's showing at the moment, there is definitely scope for him to be in that. Tom says Nice is in free fall at the moment with too many inexperienced players in the squad since Dante is out for the season. So it's going to be a challenge for Saliba to step up. Good for a useful loan. David says, man's like a baby. Virgil van Dijk, honestly, saw him loads for Saint Etienne, and he was very similar in style, which is great to have that comparison to him. Whether or not that's going to translate into real quality down the line, we'll have to wait and see. We will have to wait and see. Let's have a look at any more questions if we've got them coming in. Tom says Saliba's loan sounds exactly what we want in terms of Saliba for his development and being challenged to improve. The easier leagues getting balanced out by the dire Nice situation. There's been an announcement about Socrates' contract, which is to be terminated. Okay, well, that's positive, and maybe we'll discuss that on tomorrow's show. Fapello says, Tom, do you think OCG Nice has a similar style of play with Arsenal because he is busy playing in a back three while Arteta has made it clear he wants to play with a back four? Something that I brought up at the start of the video. I think that ultimately, positionally, it's not going to be the most beneficial for him playing in the back three in comparison to Arsenal, but defensive side of things, he's going to get a lot of tests playing at Nice. And just because you've played in a back three doesn't mean you can't necessarily play in a back four, whatever. So, yeah. Vinny says, late joining. What's your thoughts on the role that Saliba can play, and how do you feel he will be complementing Cedric on the right-hand side? He will ultimately be a right-hand-sided centre-back. The long-term goal of the club, I think, would be to partner him up with Gabriel and rotate with Rob Holding as kind of the long-term thoughts surrounding Saliba. And if it doesn't work out, then you've got a player that's very highly rated and there'll be plenty of interest in him. But fingers crossed we can develop him into the player that he has shown the quality to be. The centre-back position is starting to look quite good, says Sarab, with Gabriel, Rob Holding, Saliba and Marie all showing things. You've got backups and starters in those two positions, which is showing really, really kind of good potential from Arsenal in the future. That's going to wrap up today's show, looking at Saliba's time at Nice. If you have enjoyed the work and the effort that's gone into these videos, please drop a like on the video. I'd appreciate it. You can, if you want to hear my thoughts even more about this move, you can read the article, which is in the description, which I wrote based around the graphics that we've shown you today. But yeah, it's been a pleasure to speak to you guys as always. I'll be back tomorrow with another show of just some description, because the next game's on Saturday, so probably looking at some sort of transfer news tomorrow. No more shows today because it's Wednesday, and my afternoons are with work and stuff, so the next show will be tomorrow. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, drop a like. We'll see you again very, very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.